Before we begin today's story, I'd like to say a quick prayer for you, my dear family. May your days be filled with peace, your heart with joy, and your steps guided by light. Amen. If you're happy to be here, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. The grand ballroom of the Langston Hotel shimmered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers, their light refracting into 1,000 tiny stars that danced across marble floors. Every chair was draped in ivory silk, every table adorned with bouquets of white roses and peonies that filled the air with a soft, intoxicating fragrance. A string quartet played in the corner, the slow strains of Pachelbel's canon in D weaving through the air like a blessing. At the center of it all stood Anna Whitmore, radiant in a gown of satin and lace that hugged her slender frame before cascading into a train embroidered with delicate pearls. A veil framed her face, but nothing could hide the glow of anticipation in her eyes. Today was the culmination of every dream she had ever dared to dream, a day she had imagined since childhood when she played dress-up with her mother's curtains and whispered vows to imaginary princes. Except today was no game. Today, she was marrying Daniel Hawthorne, the man the world admired as a ruthless millionaire businessman, but whom she knew as the man who had once held her hand in the rain and whispered, "You're all I've ever wanted." The guests rose to their feet as Anna began her walk down the aisle. Every step echoed, steady and deliberate, her heart beating in rhythm with the music. Her father's arm trembled slightly under her hand, a quiet reminder that this moment belonged not only to her, but to the generations before her who had dreamed of love, security, and a future brighter than the past. At the altar, Daniel stood waiting, tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in a tailored black tuxedo. He looked every inch the self-made mogul the newspapers adored. But when his eyes met Anna's, his carefully polished composure melted into something softer, something only she was allowed to see. In that gaze was promise, protection, and a hunger that made her cheeks flush beneath the veil. The officiant's words blurred around her as Daniel reached for her hands. His touch was warm, grounding, as though he was tethering her to this moment, to him, forever. She barely heard the vows, though her lips repeated them faithfully. She only knew that when Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, the world seemed to still, every sound retreating until there was nothing but the thunderous rhythm of her own heart. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, applause erupted through the ballroom. Anna's chest swelled with joy as Daniel leaned down, brushing his lips against hers in a kiss that was both tender and possessive. This was her fairy tale, she thought, her happily ever after. But fairy tales have shadows, and hers was about to be consumed by one. The reception unfolded in a whirl of laughter, clinking glasses, and congratulations. Toasts were made, photographs taken. The dance floor opened with Anna and Daniel's first dance, an elegant waltz that left guests sighing at their grace and connection. The band shifted into livelier tunes, and soon the ballroom pulsed with movement and merriment. It was during the lull between courses, just as Anna was preparing to rise for the bouquet toss, that Samantha Carter, her maid of honor and childhood friend, stood abruptly from her seat. The chatter died as all eyes turned toward her. Samantha's golden dress shimmered under the chandeliers, her dark hair falling in perfect waves around her shoulders. Her expression, however, was not one of joy or celebration. Her hands trembled as she gripped the microphone. "Wait," she said, her voice cracking slightly before strengthening. I have something to say." The crowd murmured in confusion. Anna froze, her champagne glass halfway to her lips, her brows knitting in concern. Samantha's eyes darted toward her, then locked on Daniel with a look so charged, it sent a chill through Anna's spine. Her next words shattered the air like glass striking marble. "I can't keep this secret anymore. I'm pregnant and the father is Daniel Hawthorne. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shocked whispers, and even a few cries filled the room. Anna's breath hitched in her chest, her heart stumbling as though it had tripped over its own beat. She turned to Daniel, her new husband, her partner of only hours, searching his face for denial, for outrage, for anything that would tell her this was madness. But Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing in a flash of something unreadable, shock, anger, or guilt. She couldn't tell. Samantha's hand shook as she lowered the microphone. "I'm sorry, Anna," she whispered, though the words carried through the hushed room. "I should have told you before, but I couldn't until now." Anna's vision blurred. The laughter, the music, the shimmering chandeliers. All of it seemed to twist and distort around her. Her knees threatened to give way as the weight of betrayal pressed down on her chest. Daniel reached for her arm, but she flinched, stumbling back as though his touch burned. The fairy tale had ended, and in its place, a nightmare had begun. Silence clung to the ballroom like a suffocating fog. For a moment, no one moved. The orchestra faltered into a discordant stop, and the clinking of glasses, the hum of conversation, all of it ceased. Only Samantha's ragged breathing and the pounding of Anna's heart filled the void. Anna swayed on her feet, her fingers tightening around the back of her chair to steady herself. The warmth of champagne still lingered on her tongue, but now it tasted sour, almost metallic. Her eyes darted across the room, catching glimpses of horrified guests. Mrs. Langston, who had graciously lent her the venue, clutching her pearls. Anna's father, his weathered face twisted in disbelief. Daniel's business associates exchanging wide-eyed whispers. But Anna's gaze kept circling back to Daniel. Her husband, her brand-new husband. He had not spoken, not denied, not even flinched when Samantha dropped her devastating confession. He stood like a statue carved of stone, tall, proud, unyielding, his fists clenched at his sides, the veins in his neck pulsing like ropes pulled too tight. "Daniel?" Anna's voice was barely audible, yet the microphone picked it up when she reached for it. "Tell me she's lying." Every guest leaned forward, hungry for his response. But Daniel's lips parted only to press into a hard, silent line. His eyes flickered once to Anna, once to Samantha, and then lowered to the floor. That silence was an answer. Anna's breath hitched, as though she had been punched in the chest. The tears she had fought so carefully during the ceremony, tears of joy, now burned at the edges of her vision, threatening to fall as tears of betrayal. Samantha, trembling still, continued, "I never wanted it to be this way, Anna, but I couldn't stay silent and watch you vow your life to him, not knowing what he's done." The murmur of the crowd grew into a roar, 1,000 voices overlapping. "She can't be serious. Daniel Hawthorne? A scandal like this, unbelievable. That poor bride, pregnant? At the wedding." Anna's legs buckled, and her father rushed forward, steadying her as she nearly collapsed into her chair. His hand squeezed hers firmly, protectively. But nothing could shield her from the dagger twisting in her heart. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low, but carrying enough weight to command silence. "This is not the time or place, Samantha," he said coldly. "You've humiliated Anna enough." Samantha's chin lifted. "The time and place? You were content with lies until the very altar, Daniel. I gave you every chance to be honest. You refused, so I was left with no choice." The tension between them crackled like electricity, raw and unrestrained. Guests leaned back, as though the air itself was charged with danger. Anna pushed herself up, her legs shaking. "Enough," she said hoarsely. "Everyone, please leave us." There was hesitation, but soon ushers began guiding guests toward the exits, murmurs trailing behind them like shadows. Within minutes, the ballroom that had moments ago brimmed with joy was reduced to a battlefield of 3. Anna, Daniel, and Samantha. The silence that followed was deafening. Anna looked between them, her voice breaking. I married you because I believed in you, Daniel. I stood in front of everyone and promised my life to you. And now this? She turned to Samantha, her eyes narrowing. And you, my maid of honor, my best friend. How long? Samantha's lips trembled. 6 months. The words detonated like a bomb. Anna staggered back, one hand clutching her stomach as though physically wounded. Daniel stepped forward. Anna, don't. She held up her hand, her eyes blazing with a fire he had never seen in her before. Not one more word. Her veil slid from her hair and drifted to the floor like a fallen wing. She ripped the pearl earrings from her ears, the diamond bracelet from her wrist, and laid them on the nearest table with trembling hands. I can't breathe here, she whispered. And without another glance, Anna turned and fled the ballroom, her satin gown sweeping behind her like a broken promise. The cool night air hit her like a slap. Outside the Langston Hotel, the city lights blurred through her tears. Cameras from lurking paparazzi flashed in distance, drawn by whispers of chaos spilling from the wedding of the season. Anna clutched her dress, lifted her skirts, and ran. Her heels clattered against the pavement until one snapped, sending her sprawling to the ground. Pain shot through her ankle, but she barely felt it. She tore the shoes from her feet and continued barefoot, desperate to put distance between herself and the lies festering behind those gilded walls. Her father's voice echoed behind her, calling her name, but she couldn't stop. Not yet. Not when the world had just crumbled at her feet. Her mind reeled with images. Daniel's silence, Samantha's trembling confession, the cold weight of betrayal pressing against her chest. She stumbled into the shadows of a nearby park, collapsing onto a bench beneath a flickering lamppost. The silence of the night wrapped around her, broken only by her sobs. She pressed her hands to her face, muffling the sound, but nothing could muffle the anguish inside her. How could this be her life? How could the man she thought her forever betray her so completely? How could her best friend, the sister of her soul, stab her in the back in front of the world? The engagement, the plans, the promises, all of it replayed in her mind with cruel clarity. Daniel whispering, I've never loved anyone like you. Samantha fastening her veil earlier that day, smiling warmly and saying, You deserve happiness more than anyone, Anna. Lies. Every word. Lies. A single, harrowing thought pierced through her grief. What if it's true? What if Samantha really is carrying Daniel's child? Her stomach twisted. The betrayal was bad enough, but a child? That would bind Daniel to Samantha forever. Anna gripped the edge of the bench, nails digging into the wood, her body shaking with rage and despair. She had dreamed of building a family with Daniel, of children who would bear both their names, both their features. Now that dream was shattered, stolen before it even had a chance to begin. The lamppost above her flickered once more, then steadied, casting her tear-streaked face in pale light. Her wedding gown clung to her like a shroud. She felt less like a bride and more like a ghost haunting the ruins of her own life. Why? She whispered into the night. Why me? Inside the Langston Hotel, the grand ballroom was a husk of what it had been only hours earlier. The tables still gleamed with untouched desserts. Champagne glasses still sparkled beneath the chandeliers. But the magic had been stripped away. The air smelled not of roses and celebration, but of panic, shame, and scandal. Daniel Hawthorne stood at the center of it all, his tuxedo immaculate, yet his composure fractured. His jaw ached from clenching it too tightly. His temples throbbed with the weight of too many eyes upon him. He ignored the few remaining guests who lingered in corners whispering, ignored the hotel staff nervously clearing abandoned plates, ignored even the press that was no doubt waiting just beyond the gilded doors. His gaze was locked on Samantha. She stood tall despite the tremor in her hands, her golden dress glittering mockingly under the chandeliers. There was defiance in her eyes, but also fear, a desperate flicker that betrayed her own uncertainty. "You've destroyed everything," Daniel said finally, his voice low and lethal. "No, Daniel," Samantha countered, though her voice cracked. "I've exposed the truth. You destroyed everything when you betrayed Anna, when you betrayed me." Her words stung, but he refused to let it show. He had built his empire on control of his image, his company, his emotions. And yet, tonight, his empire felt like it was crumbling brick by brick. "You think this helps you?" he asked coldly. "Announcing it here? At the wedding? Do you realize what you've done? To Anna, to me, to yourself?" Samantha's chin quivered, but she raised it higher. "I did what you couldn't. I told the truth." Daniel turned away, pacing, his hands buried in his hair. Truth. The word echoed bitterly in his mind. The truth was far more complicated than Samantha's dramatic outburst suggested. Yes, there had been a night, a mistake born of grief and weakness. But the truth was also that Anna was the woman he loved, the woman he had chosen, the woman he had just vowed his life to. Yet now Anna was gone. She had fled into the night, her gown trailing behind her like smoke, and the image of her stricken face haunted him like a wound that would never heal. Meanwhile, outside, the city was already buzzing. Reporters gathered near the entrance, their cameras flashing as guests trickled out, offering scraps of gossip to feed the fire. Headlines would splash across morning papers. Millionaire's wedding in ruins, maid of honor drops bombshell, scandal at the Hawthorne nuptials. Inside a waiting black car, Daniel's driver watched the frenzy nervously in the rearview mirror. He had seen his employer command boardrooms, silence rivals, and outmaneuver some of the shrewdest businessmen in the country. But tonight, even he wondered if Daniel Hawthorne could withstand the storm. Daniel finally stormed out of the ballroom, ignoring the flashes of cameras as he slid into the car, his fists clenched on his knees, his mind racing. "Find her," he ordered the driver through gritted teeth. Wherever Anna went, find her. Anna had not gone far. Her father had caught up with her in the park, his old legs moving with surprising speed, fueled by paternal instinct. He found her collapsed on a bench, her gown dirted, her bare feet bruised from the pavement. "Anna," he breathed, sitting beside her. His hands trembled as they cupped her tear-stained face. "Oh, my sweet girl." She fell into his arms, sobbing with a rawness that tore at his heart. He rocked her gently, murmuring comforts like he had when she was a child with scraped knees. But this wound was far deeper, far crueler. "He didn't deny it, Dad," she choked out. "Not once. He just stood there. And she said she's carrying his child." Her father's eyes darkened, his jaw setting like iron. "Then he's not worthy of you. Not now, not ever." Anna pulled back, her face pale in the lamplight. "But I love him." The words hung heavy between them. Love, the most powerful, most treacherous force of all. Her father sighed deeply, brushing a strand of hair from her damp cheek. "Love, my Anna, should never be a cage. It should never be pain-dressed as devotion. You deserve better than a man who breaks his vows before they're even written in memory." Anna swallowed hard, torn between the echo of her father's wisdom and the relentless ache in her heart. She remembered Daniel's touch, his promises, his smile, the man she believed was hers. But now, those memories felt like shards of glass, cutting her from within. Her father stood, offering his hand. "Come, we're going home." Anna hesitated, glancing back toward the glowing hotel where her ruined wedding still echoed like a nightmare. Then she took his hand, back in his penthouse hours later. Daniel sat alone in the dark. The city sprawled beneath him, lights blinking like indifferent stars. On the table before him lay his wedding ring, the one Anna had slid onto his finger only hours earlier. He turned it over and over, the metal catching faint glimmers of moonlight. He had built fortunes, conquered industries, crushed rivals without hesitation. But none of that mattered tonight. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Powerless to undo the damage. Powerless to reach the woman he loved. Powerless against the truth Samantha had unleashed. A glass of bourbon sat untouched beside him. For once, the burn of liquor held no appeal. What he craved was Anna's forgiveness, Anna's presence, Anna's belief in him once more. But would she ever grant him that? Now that Samantha's words had poisoned everything? The ring slipped from his fingers, clinking against the table. Daniel bowed his head into his hands, and for the first time in decades, the man who had been raised to never show weakness allowed himself to break. The Whitmore home was a modest, two-story house on the quieter edge of the city, far from the glittering towers where Daniel Hawthorne ruled. For Anna, it had always been a sanctuary, a place of safety, of warmth, of her late mother's laughter still echoing in the walls. But tonight, as her father ushered her inside, the home felt different, smaller, heavier, as though the betrayal clinging to her gown had followed her here, contaminating every corner. Her father guided her to the sofa, where she sank down, numb and trembling. He covered her with a blanket, though she felt no cold. She felt nothing at all except the hollow ache of shock. "Rest, my girl," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "We'll talk in the morning. Right now your heart needs quiet." But Anna knew there would be no rest. Not tonight. When her father finally retreated upstairs, she slipped from beneath the blanket and wandered the darkened living room. The clock ticked too loudly, each second mocking her with the reminder that only hours ago she had been a bride. Now she was something else entirely. Her phone buzzed endlessly on the coffee table, screen lighting up with message after message. Friends, relatives, even distant acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted a piece of the scandal. She silenced it, face burning with humiliation. Her veil still hung from her hair, dirty and torn from where it had fallen in the ballroom. She yanked it off, threw it into the fireplace, and watched as the delicate lace caught flame, curling into ash. The smoke rose, acrid and bitter, filling her nose and lungs until tears streamed again down her cheeks. She pressed her palms to the mantel, her reflection wavering in the dark glass above. For the first time, she truly looked at herself, not the radiant bride she had been hours ago, but a woman stripped of illusions. Her chest tightened. Was it all a lie? Every memory played in her mind like a cruel slideshow. Daniel's proposal under the city lights, his whispered promises of forever, the way he had looked at her at the altar, as though she were his whole world. Had any of it been real, or had she been nothing but a placeholder until Samantha forced herself into the open? Her thoughts spiraled until she clutched her stomach, nausea rising. She staggered upstairs to her childhood bedroom, collapsing onto the bed, still clad in the ruined wedding gown. She stared at the ceiling, waiting for exhaustion to claim her. But sleep never came. Only questions. Endless, merciless questions. Morning arrived with no mercy. Anna awoke to the sound of her father's radio blaring from the kitchen, though he rarely played it at that volume. She dragged herself downstairs, the gown now wrinkled and smudged, her hair tangled. "Dad," she rasped. He turned, his face grim. "Anna, you should sit." On the radio, the announcer's voice was sharp with intrigue. Last night's wedding of millionaire businessman Daniel Hawthorne to Anna Whitmore ended in chaos when the maid of honor, Samantha Carter, declared she was carrying Hawthorne's child. Guests report the bride fled the scene in distress. Hawthorne has yet to issue a statement. The scandal has already sent ripples through financial markets, with Hawthorne Industries stock dipping in early trading. Anna staggered back, gripping the counter. "They're broadcasting it?" "Everywhere," her father confirmed. "Television, newspapers, social media. It's everywhere, Anna." Her phone abandoned on the sofa, vibrated wildly again. Dozens, maybe hundreds of new notifications lighting the screen. She refused to look. She couldn't bear to see her private devastation dissected for public entertainment. Her father poured her tea, sliding the cup across the table. "Drink, sweetheart. You need strength." But Anna's stomach churned too violently to accept anything. She pushed the cup aside, her hands trembling. "Why did he do this?" she whispered. "Why did she?" Her father's eyes softened. "Sometimes people hurt others because they are weak, Anna. Sometimes because they are selfish. But none of that is your fault. Remember that?" She wanted to believe him, but deep down, doubt gnawed at her. What if she had been blind? What if she had ignored signs? What if she had never truly known the man she married? Across town in his towering penthouse, Daniel sat surrounded by chaos. Reporters crowded outside the building, their cameras flashing at every vehicle that entered or left. His phone buzzed with calls from board members, investors, even the mayor's office. Everyone demanding answers. But Daniel ignored them all. He sat in his study, staring at the crumpled tuxedo jacket thrown over a chair. The scent of Anna's perfume still clung faintly to his shirt. It haunted him, a reminder of what he had lost. Samantha's voice echoed in his mind. "I'm pregnant, and the father is Daniel Hawthorne." It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The truth, his truth, was far more tangled, far less damning. But Samantha's words had shaped the narrative, and silence made him guilty by default. He pressed his palms into his eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. He needed to explain to Anna. He needed her to hear the truth from his own lips before the world buried it beneath scandal. But how could he reach her now? That afternoon, as Anna sat curled on the sofa, her blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, a knock rattled the front door. Her father answered, his deep voice gruff. "What do you want?" A pause, then a familiar voice. Low, steady, urgent. "Please, I need to speak with her." Anna's blood ran cold. "Daniel?" She rose slowly, her bare feet dragging against the floorboards as she approached. Her father blocked the doorway, his shoulders squared like a shield. "You have no right to be here," he snapped. "Not after what you've done." "I know," Daniel replied, his voice strained. "But I can't let it end like this. Please, just 5 minutes. Let me speak to her." Anna's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to slam the door and bar him from her life forever. And yet another part of her, small but stubborn, yearned for answers. Her father glanced back at her, waiting for her decision. Anna swallowed hard, her voice hoarse but steady. "Let him in." The moment Daniel stepped into the Whitmore living room, the air seemed to tighten, as though the house itself braced for battle. He looked out of place here, too tall, too polished, his tailored suit rumpled but still radiating wealth and power. Yet his face betrayed something far more human. Exhaustion, regret, the deep grooves of a man who hadn't slept, who had been carrying the weight of too many truths. Anna stood by the fireplace, her blanket falling from her shoulders, revealing the wrinkled remains of her wedding gown. The sight hit Daniel like a blade to the chest. The woman he had dreamed of seeing radiant and white for the rest of his life now looked shattered, as though he had personally torn the light from her eyes. "Anna," his voice cracked, soft and desperate. "Don't." Her hand shot up, silencing him. "Don't say my name like you still have the right." Her father hovered near the doorway, arms crossed, ready to intervene if needed. Daniel nodded respectfully in his direction, then turned back to Anna. "I need to explain." "Explain?" Anna's laugh was sharp, bitter. "You had every chance to explain last night, Daniel, when she stood up in front of everyone and said she was carrying your child. You didn't deny it. You didn't say a single word. You just stood there." Her voice broke, and she pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. Because the truth isn't something that can be shouted over champagne glasses and gossiping strangers. It's complicated. Complicated, she snapped. It's simple, Daniel. Did you sleep with her? Yes or no? The question sliced the room into silence. Even her father froze, waiting. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, then forced them open, meeting hers. Yes. The word landed like a gunshot. Anna staggered back, her breath catching. Her father cursed under his breath, shaking his head in disgust. But it wasn't what she made it sound like. Daniel pressed quickly. It was one night, months before I proposed to you. I was at my lowest, drowning in grief after my mother's death, and I cut him off, tears brimming. So that makes it better? That makes it forgivable. No, he admitted, his voice raw. It makes me a coward, a fool. But Anna, it was before you, before us. I swear to you, I never touched her again. I don't love her. I never did. You're the one I love. The only one. Anna's knees buckled, and she sank onto the sofa, her head in her hands. The pain was unbearable, his words both healing and cutting. If it was before her, then he hadn't technically betrayed their vows. But Samantha's smug announcement, her claim of pregnancy, her triumph at destroying Anna's wedding, it all screamed of something more. And the child, she whispered, is it true? Daniel's throat tightened. I don't know. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing. You don't know? She never told me, Daniel confessed. She disappeared after that night. I tried to forget it, to bury it, to move forward with the life I wanted, the life with you. And then last night, he trailed off, pain flickering across his face. She blindsided me, Anna, just like she did you. Anna stared at him, her chest heaving, her mind spiraling. Every word might be true, or it might be another polished performance from a man who knew how to bend truth to his will. Her father stepped forward, voice stern. You expect her to believe you? After humiliating her in front of the world. Daniel turned to him, his expression unflinching. No, I expect her to decide for herself. But I couldn't let her believe I betrayed her during our engagement. That's not who I am. That's not what happened. He looked back at Anna, his eyes burning with an honesty that shook her. You're my wife, Anna. Despite everything, you are my wife. And I will spend every breath I have proving to you that what I feel for you is real. Anna's lip trembled. She wanted to scream at him, to throw him out, to never see his face again. But beneath the fury and hurt, a small, stubborn ember of love refused to die. And that terrified her most of all. Across town, Samantha lounged in her luxury apartment, sipping champagne as the morning news replayed clips from the ruined wedding. She watched with satisfaction as pundits debated Daniel's future, as journalists speculated about Anna's next move. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from certain friends who delighted in the chaos. But Samantha's smile faded when she opened a private text. Unknown number. You've gone too far. He won't forgive you for this. Her grip tightened on the glass, fury flashing in her eyes. Watch me, she muttered, tossing the phone aside, because Samantha Carter had not revealed everything. Not yet. And it didn't leave the house for 3 days. The Whitmore home became her fortress, her shield against the outside world. Reporters camped outside, cameras flashing whenever her father opened the door to collect the newspaper. Her phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from friends, journalists, and even strangers. She silenced it all. Inside, she existed in a fog. She drifted from room to room, still in the remnants of her wedding gown on the first day, then in oversized sweaters the next. Food lost its taste. Time lost its meaning. The only constant was the gnawing ache in her chest. Daniel's words haunted her. It was before you. I don't know if the child is mine. You're the one I love. They wrapped around her heart like thorns, painful but impossible to ignore. On the second night, she found herself sitting at her desk, staring at her journal. Her hands itched to write, to pour out the storm raging inside her. But when she picked up the pen, all she managed was one sentence. Who am I now? In his penthouse, Daniel Hawthorne waged his own private war. His company was bleeding. Investors pulled back, afraid of scandal. Competitors circled like sharks, whispering about his reckless personal life. His lawyers begged him to issue a statement denying everything, to salvage his reputation. But Daniel refused. He wasn't thinking about the boardroom. He was thinking about Anna. Every night he replayed her face in the living room. Broken, furious, unbelieving. Every night he cursed himself for the one mistake that had given Samantha the weapon to destroy them. On the fourth day he snapped. He dismissed his advisors, silenced his phone, and went to war the only way he knew how. Head on. If Samantha thought she could manipulate his silence, she was wrong. Samantha knew Daniel would come. She counted on it. When the knock sounded at her apartment, she smiled faintly and opened the door. There he was, still the powerful man she once desired, but now with fire in his eyes. Daniel, she purred. I was wondering how long it would take. He brushed past her, jaw tight. Cut the game, Samantha. What do you want? Her smile widened. Isn't it obvious? I want what I've always wanted. You. Daniel's fists clenched. This ends now. Whatever fantasy you're living in, it's over. You will not destroy Anna to get to me. Samantha tilted her head, feigning innocence. Destroy her? I gave her the truth. If she can't handle it, that's her problem. Truth. Daniel barked out a bitter laugh. You don't even know if the child is mine. Her eyes glittered. Don't I? The words hung heavy between them. Daniel's chest tightened. He had braced for denial, for manipulation, but not for the possibility that Samantha actually carried his child. Still, he forced his voice steady. If it's mine, prove it. Until then, you will not use that child as a weapon. Because I swear, Samantha, if you try to ruin Anna again, I'll bring every lawyer, every resource, every ounce of my power down on you. Samantha's expression flickered, but only for a moment. Then she smiled, slow and dangerous. Careful, Daniel. Anger looks good on you, almost as good as fear. Back at the Whitmore home, Anna sat by the window, gazing at the rain sliding down the glass. The world outside seemed to mirror her heart, gray, restless, uncertain. She had tried to cut Daniel from her mind, but everywhere she turned, there he was. Headlines, news alerts, even whispered conversations between her neighbors when she went out briefly for groceries. Poor girl, they murmured. Such a scandal. Do you think she'll leave him? On the fifth day, her father entered her room carrying a stack of letters. These came for you, he said gently. Most are probably from people looking to feed off the gossip. But there's one different. Anna hesitated before taking them. She flipped it quickly until she saw it. Thick cream-colored paper, embossed with initials she knew too well. D.H. Her breath caught. Hands trembling, she opened the envelope. Inside was Daniel's handwriting, sharp, deliberate, desperate. Anna, I won't beg for forgiveness in public. I won't cheapen our vows by turning them into a press statement. I only ask for one chance to show you the truth. Not my lawyer's truth. Not the media's truth. Mine. If you can find it in your heart to see me one last time, meet me at the place where I first told you I loved you. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Yours always, Daniel. Anna's heart pounded as she read the words again and again. The place where he first told her he loved her. The fountain in the old city park. Her stomach twisted. Could she face him again? Did she even want it? And yet, her fingers clutched the letter tightly, as though afraid it might vanish if she let go. That night, Anna barely slept. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, the letter clutched in her hand like a lifeline and a curse at once. Her mind replayed every moment of the wedding. Samantha's voice, Daniel's silence, the gasps of the guests. Then Daniel's face in her father's living room, eyes burning with sincerity. Could she risk hearing him out? Could she bear the possibility of discovering more pain? Around dawn, she finally rose, her body aching from restless tossing. She went to the kitchen where her father sat reading the paper. He looked up at her, lines of worry etched deep across his face. "You're thinking about going," he said softly. Anna sank into a chair, wrapping her hands around a mug of untouched coffee. "If I don't, I'll never know. And if I never know, I'll always wonder." Her father sighed. "He hurt you, Anna. Don't forget that." "I can't," she whispered, "but I can't forget that I love him either." Her father's eyes softened, though concern lingered. "Then go, but guard your heart." The park was nearly empty at dusk, the old fountain standing like a sentinel in the center. Its stone rim was weathered, its water shimmering faintly under the glow of street lamps. For Anna, it was sacred ground, the place Daniel had once taken her after a gala, where he had stripped away the armor of wealth and simply said, "I love you." Now she stood there again, clutching her coat tightly against the evening chill, her pulse hammering in her ears. Then she saw him. Daniel approached slowly, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim light. His steps were careful, almost reverent, as though he feared startling her into fleeing. "Anna," he said, his voice low. Her throat tightened. "I shouldn't have come." "But you did," he replied, hope flickering in his eyes. For a long moment, they just stood there, silence stretching between them, filled only by the sound of the fountain's water. Finally, Anna spoke. "Why didn't you tell me about her? About that night?" Daniel exhaled heavily. "Because I wanted to believe it didn't matter. It was before us, before I even knew you existed. It felt irrelevant. And when I fell in love with you, Anna, you became my only truth. I never wanted to stain what we had with something meaningless from my past." "Meaningless?" Anna's eyes flared. "She's pregnant, Daniel. That's not meaningless." His jaw tightened. "If the child is mine, I'll take responsibility. But my love for you hasn't changed. Not one bit. I swear it." Anna's eyes brimmed with tears. "Do you even hear yourself? How am I supposed to stand beside you, knowing your child might grow up calling her mother? Well, I'm just the woman who stayed despite the humiliation." Daniel stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Because you're not just anything. You're my wife, the woman who makes me want to be better, who makes me believe in something beyond success and money. You're my heart, Anna. With or without that child, nothing will ever change that." Her tears spilled freely now, cutting down her cheeks. She wanted to believe him desperately. His words were raw, unpolished, not the rehearsed lines of a businessman, but the plea of a man stripped bare. Still, the wound was deep, and healing felt impossible. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. Daniel's hand hovered near hers, but didn't touch. "Then let me prove it. One day at a time. Just don't walk away before I get the chance." The fountain gurgled, water spilling in a timeless rhythm, as if urging her to decide. Anna's heart screamed with conflict. The man before her was the one she had dreamed of marrying. Yet he was also the man who had brought her more pain than she'd ever known. For the first time in her life, Anna realized that love alone might not be enough. Far from the quiet fountain, Samantha wasn't done. If Daniel thought one heartfelt meeting could restore what she had shattered, he underestimated her. Sitting at her vanity, she picked up a sleek black folder. Inside were photographs Daniel and Anna at charity galas, Daniel in business meetings, and one grainy shot of Daniel leaving her apartment months ago. She smirked. To anyone else, it meant nothing. To the media, it would be spun into a tale of secret affairs and betrayal. Her phone buzzed. A contact labeled Simply C. "C, ready when you are. The story drops tomorrow morning." Samantha typed back with a smile. "Samantha. Perfect. Let them choke on the truth." She closed the folder, her reflection smirking back at her in the mirror. The game wasn't over. It was only beginning. Morning arrived like a blow to the chest. Anna's father handed her the newspaper with a grim expression, as if the mere act of looking at it could physically hurt her. The headline screamed in bold black letters: Millionaire Daniel Hawthorne's secret affair exposed. Bride faces public humiliation. The article was merciless. Samantha's careful narrative painted Daniel as a habitual cheater and Anna as the unsuspecting victim of his deception. Photos of Daniel and Anna together, taken out of context, were juxtaposed with a blurry image of Daniel leaving an apartment, Samantha's apartment, months earlier. The language was calculated, emotionally charged: scandal, betrayal, heartbroken bride, pregnancy rumors. Anna felt bile rise in her throat. She dropped the paper onto the kitchen table. The room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in as though the world itself had joined in the mockery. Her father knelt beside her, voice low and steady. Ignore it. None of this is your fault. She shook her head. It's not about fault anymore. It's about survival in a world that sees me as nothing but a headline. Daniel watched the media frenzy from his office tower, hands clenched around a cold glass of whiskey. Samantha's plan had worked perfectly. Headlines, social media, gossip. The city was ablaze with their story. Investors panicked. Employees whispered behind closed doors. The press hounded him for statements. And yet he refused. He couldn't risk speaking publicly and adding fuel to Samantha's fire. Words could be twisted, intentions misrepresented. No, he needed Anna's trust, not the world's. He stared at the clock. 10 a.m. He would call Anna. Not to argue, not to explain, simply to be present. To show her that despite the storm raging outside, he was still the man who loved her. He pressed the phone to his ear and dialed her number. The line rang 3 times before Anna answered, voice brittle and cautious. Anna. Daniel's voice was soft, careful. Please hear me. I've read the headlines, Anna spat. I don't need to hear anything from you, Daniel. It's all over the city. Everyone knows. No, he admitted. And that's Samantha's doing. She wants this to break us, to make you hate me. But you need to hear it from me. The truth, Anna. Not her lies. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. Truth? How can I trust your truth when the world says it's all lies? Because I'm not asking the world to trust me. I'm asking you, Daniel said. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you. But everything I've ever said to you about love, that's real. That hasn't changed. And I will prove it to you every day if I have to. Anna bit her lip, trembling. The sincerity in his voice clawed at the walls she had built around her heart. Yet fear lingered. Samantha's shadow loomed large, threatening to consume everything. I don't know if I can, Daniel, she whispered. Then I'll wait, he replied firmly. I'll wait for as long as it takes. Meanwhile, Samantha's plan advanced with precision. By noon, every major news outlet had picked up the story. Tweets, Instagram posts, and online tabloids carried her version of events. She had even leaked an anonymous tip to a gossip blogger, complete with doctored images and suggestive captions. Her phone rang. She answered casually. Is everything on track? She asked, a smirk tugging at her lips. Yes, ma'am, replied the voice on the other end. The story's trending worldwide. Social media is buzzing. The bride's devastated, and Hawthorne's trying to reach her. Samantha's smile widened. Good. Let him sweat. Let everyone watch. The more chaos I create, the better it looks for me. She poured herself another glass of champagne, raising it to the empty room. To power, she murmured, and to the mistakes of others. That evening, Anna sat by the fountain once again, Daniel waiting silently as the water glimmered under the streetlights. She clutched her coat tightly, feeling the weight of the headlines in her chest. Yet beneath it, beneath the pain, there was something that refused to die. The memory of Daniel's eyes, raw and honest, at her father's living room. The memory of his voice, promising he would prove his love. "I can't just forgive everything," she said finally, voice trembling. "And I don't even know if I can trust you completely yet." Daniel stepped closer, but he did not touch her. "Then don't," he said softly. "Just let me show you that I am not what Samantha wants you to think I am. Let me earn back your trust, not in words, in actions." Anna swallowed hard, heart pounding. The world could crumble around them. Samantha could keep scheming. Headlines could scream for a lifetime. But at that moment, under the quiet glow of the fountain, Anna realized she had a choice: to step back into fear or to step forward into the man she loved, even if the road ahead was uncertain. She took a shaky breath. "One step at a time," she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. "One step at a time." The following night, Samantha sat in her darkened apartment, the city lights painting angular shadows across her face. Her phone buzzed. It was Daniel. The sight of his name made her smirk. He had called her plead, no doubt hoping she would back down. She answered with false sweetness. "Daniel, darling, I was wondering when you'd call." "Cut the act, Samantha," he said sharply. "I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to destroy me and Anna, and it ends now." "Oh, Daniel," Samantha said, tilting her head. "You misunderstand me. I'm not destroying you. I'm liberating you." "Liberating me?" he spat. "By ruining my wife's wedding day and manipulating the media? By lying about your child?" Her lips curled into a dangerous smile. "You don't get it. If Anna walks away, she loses. If you walk away, you lose. I hold all the cards. You see, Daniel, some people are born to win." He clenched his fists, jaw tight. "Not if I expose you for what you are." "Oh, Daniel," she whispered, almost mockingly. "I don't think you dare." And she was right. If he went public, Samantha had a backup plan. Photos, documents, witnesses. She had stacked the deck in her favor. And one misstep could ruin him forever. Daniel hung up the phone and ran a hand through his hair. Samantha's threats were calculated. Every move she made was designed to hurt Anna, to destroy his credibility, and to force him into submission. But he wasn't about to play her game. Instead, he focused on one thing: Anna. He spent the next days gathering evidence to counter Samantha's lies, hiring private investigators discreetly, and planning a way to reveal the truth without giving Samantha another opportunity to manipulate it. He drafted emails, collected receipts, and even arranged for confidential DNA testing, all with one goal in mind: to clear his name and prove to Anna that his heart had always belonged to her. Meanwhile, Anna wasn't passive. After the fountain meeting, she had returned home determined to reclaim some sense of control. She read every article, every rumor, every accusation Samantha had planted, and slowly, carefully, she began to sift truth from lies. She realized that Samantha's power came from fear. Fear of public humiliation, fear of betrayal, fear of the unknown. And if she let that fear dictate her choices, she would never find peace. She began documenting everything: Samantha's contradictions, Daniel's consistent honesty with her, and even small details she had noticed, like Daniel's genuine grief over the wedding scandal, the way he had refused to lash out publicly, and his tireless efforts to protect her reputation. Piece by piece, Anna began to rebuild her confidence. Finally, Daniel and Anna decided it was time to confront Samantha together. They arrived at her apartment, Daniel calm but determined, Anna nervous but resolute. Samantha opened the door with her usual smirk. "Well," she said, "if it isn't the happy couple, or at least the bride and the not-so-happy groom." Anna stepped forward, her voice steady. "It's over, Samantha. Your games end now. You've humiliated me, lied and manipulated, but we see through it all." Samantha's smirk faltered. "And who's we?" "You? Him?" "Yes," Daniel said, voice firm. "We. You've underestimated us, and your threats won't work anymore." Anna added, "Everything you've claimed, Your version of events, your lies about a child, we've checked. We know the truth. Samantha's eyes narrowed. You can't prove anything. Daniel stepped closer, holding a small envelope. Actually, we can. All your claims are documented, and we have evidence that exposes your deception. If you continue, the public will know who you really are. For the first time, Samantha's composure cracked. You wouldn't dare? Anna smiled faintly. Try us, because we're done being afraid. Samantha's phone buzzed. Messages from her contacts warned her that her plan was unraveling. Panic flashed across her face. The first genuine emotion she had allowed herself to show in weeks. For the first time, Samantha realized that she had overplayed her hand. In the weeks that followed, the story shifted. The media slowly corrected itself, revealing Samantha's manipulations. Daniel and Anna maintained discretion, refusing interviews and relying on verified evidence to clear the scandal. Slowly, trust began to rebuild between them. Anna allowed herself to lean on Daniel again, cautiously, but with hope. Daniel worked tirelessly to make amends, proving that his love wasn't just words. It was action, patience, and protection. Samantha, stripped of her influence, retreated from the public eye. Her empire of deceit collapsed quietly, leaving her isolated and exposed. The wedding scandal, once the pinnacle of humiliation, became a testament to resilience, truth, and the enduring power of love. And Anna realized that even through betrayal, heartbreak, and manipulation, some bonds were unbreakable, forged not by perfection, but by forgiveness, courage, and unwavering devotion. The scandal faded from headlines, but Anna's heart still carried scars. In the evenings, she and Daniel would walk along the riverside, talking quietly. Sometimes they spoke about the future, tentative plans of travel, dreams of building a family one day. Other times, silence spoke louder than words. Daniel never pushed her. He held her hand when she offered it, listened when she spoke, and accepted her silence when she couldn't find the strength. One night, as the city lights reflected on the water, Anna whispered, "I don't want to live in fear anymore. Not of you, not of her, not of the world. I want us to move forward, Daniel, but only if you promise me something." "Anything," he said. "Promise me," she whispered, voice trembling, "that no matter what storms come, you'll never let me fight alone again." Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I swear, Anna, whatever comes, we face it together." Weeks later, Daniel surprised Anna with a quiet ceremony at their garden. No press, no extravagant spectacle, no maid of honor. Just close family and a few trusted friends. The vows were simple, but they carried the weight of everything they had endured. Anna's father, standing proudly in the front row, wiped away tears as he watched his daughter exchange promises with the man who had once nearly lost her. For Anna, the ceremony wasn't about the grandeur of a wedding. It was about reclaiming her story. It was about declaring to herself, to Daniel, and to the world that love, when chosen freely and fought for bravely, could withstand even the deepest betrayal. But even as they celebrated, Samantha lingered like a shadow on the edge of their lives. One morning, Anna received an anonymous envelope in the mail. Inside was a single photograph. Samantha, standing at an airport, boarding pass in hand, smirking at the camera. On the back of the photo, a handwritten note read, "Asterisk, this isn't over. People like me don't disappear, we wait." Asterisk. Anna's chest tightened as she stared at the words. She handed it to Daniel, who read it with narrowed eyes. "Let her wait," he said firmly. "She'll find no weakness left in us." Anna looked into his eyes, and for the first time since the chaos had begun, she believed him. Truly believed. Months passed. Life began to settle into rhythm again. Anna returned to her work, reclaiming her independence and sense of purpose. Daniel, humbled and renewed, balanced his business with his devotion to their relationship. Their love was not the naive romance of their early days. It was deeper now, scarred but strengthened, fragile yet resilient. And though Samantha's shadow hovered in the background, Anna no longer lived in fear of her. The storm had taught her something valuable. She was stronger than she had ever known. And with Daniel beside her, no scandal, no betrayal, and no schemer could ever take away the truth they had built together. Years later, as Anna stood by the same riverside where she and Daniel had once spoken of fear, she held his hand tightly. Their children laughed nearby, chasing each other across the grass. She remembered the chaos, the pain, the humiliation, but she also remembered the healing, the forgiveness, and the courage it had taken to rise again. She turned to Daniel with a small smile. "Do you think she'll ever come back?" Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "Maybe, but it won't matter, because whatever comes, we'll face it together." And I exhaled, watching the sunset blaze across the horizon. For the first time in a long time, her heart felt entirely at peace.